Good evening, everybody. Tonight's lesson will be on leadership. Leadership is one of the most important things in management. And the reason I feel that's the most important thing in management is as a manager, it's one of the things you can't outsource. Because if you outsource your leadership, then you're really nothing. So we're going to begin our discussion tonight with our learning outcomes. Learning outcomes, we're going to briefly describe the 5 key elements of leadership, identify and define the managerial leadership skills, list the 10 managerial roles based on their 3 categories, explain the interrelationships among the levels of leadership analysis, describe the major similarity and differences between the trait and behavioral leadership theories, and the interrelationships between them and contingency theories. That concludes slide 2. We now move on to slide 3. Leadership described. Leadership is a development. It's everyone's business. Why leadership development is important? Because leadership is a key issue in management, as I said before in our introduction. Organizations invest heavily in leadership development, in seminars, viewed as a competitive advantage. So, for example, if somebody wants to invest in a company and that company has an excellent reputation of having fantastic leadership, it will help with investors being interested. Critics state that new graduates lack the skills to lead people. A lot of that has to do with your personality. Some people are born leaders, some people can be cultivated, some people are just not cut out for it. We now move on to slide 4. Why study leadership? Leadership applies to your professional life. The need for good leadership skills in management is self-evident. The old workplace, managers telling employees what to do, is gone. Today, employees want to be involved in management and share in decision making. Long gone are the days of sweatshops where you do as I tell you to do. Today, we have a generation, many of whom are just not interested in putting up with the old school of management, and as such will just pick themselves up and leave. Especially today, we have an excellent job market. So you have to be a charismatic leader. You have to be one that knows how to galvanize and energize people. Leadership applies to your personal life. You interact with others every day. It will help you with your personal life as well. Now we move on to slide 5. Discussion question, food for thought. Should leadership be the management's job, or should leadership be a shared process? Think about that. Are you interested in sharing leadership, or do you prefer to be a follower? That has something to do with your inner core and your inner soul. Let's move on to slide 6. Need for self-assessment. Know thyself, or self-awareness is leadership's first commandment. Because if you don't know yourself, if you don't have emotional intelligence, which really starts with yourself, then you won't be able to lead others. So the first step to leadership development is self-awareness of leadership competencies. We move on to slide 7, which is known as Exhibit 1-1. Leadership's definition key. Leadership is the influencing process of leaders and followers to achieve organizational objectives through change. It involves influence, leader-followers, change, people, and organizational objectives. We move on to slide 8. Leadership is shared. The influencing process happens between leaders and followers, organizations and managers or employees. The context here is a formal organizational setting. Managers are leaders and followers. A manager is a person with title and authority. A leader does not have to be a manager. It could be somebody who is an employee but exhibits leadership through his or her knowledge. Followers are people influenced by a leader. We move on to slide 9. Influence. Influencing is the process of a leader communicating ideas, gaining acceptance of them, and motivating followers to support and implement the ideas through change. The essence of leadership is influencing. Your ability to influence others can be developed. Leaders gain the commitment of followers willing to be influenced as they share leadership. Slide number 10. Objectives, change, and people. Organizational objectives. Effective leaders influence followers to accomplish shared objectives. Change is influencing and setting objectives, which is all about the change. People. Leadership is about leading people through relationships. Now, the Hawthorne studies, which is something you should have learned about in Principles of Management, clearly illustrates how important the relationship between management and employee is. And without that dynamic relationship, the entire management process will be hamstrung and will not be a very, very fluid one. Slide 11. Leadership skills. Are leaders born or are they made? Both they are born with some leadership ability and then develop that ability. Can leadership be taught and skills developed? Yes, Research supports that leadership is learnable as people develop their knowledge, skills, and ability. We move on now to slide number 12. Management skills. Decision-making skills are based on the ability to conceptualize situations and select alternatives to solve problems and take advantage of opportunities. Technical skills involve the ability to use methods and techniques to perform a task. Interpersonal skills involve the ability to understand, communicate, and work well with individuals and groups through developing effective relationships. Very, very important. We now move on to slide 13. Discussion question. Some say the hard skills, for example, finance and quantitative analysis, the number crunching that is, are more important for managers than soft skills, for example, interpersonal skills. And some say the opposite is true. What is your view? Think about that. Discuss that with your classmates. Slide 14. Needed skills and management level. The need for each skill varies based on the level of management. Top-level managers have a greater need for interpersonal and decision-making skills. Middle managers have a balanced need for all three skills. First-level managers have a greater need for technical and interpersonal skills. But from my experience, no matter what level of management you're on, if you don't have good interpersonal skills, you will become estranged from your employees. Slide 15. Leadership's managerial roles. Henry Mintzberg identified 10 managerial roles leaders perform to accomplish organizational objectives. He grouped them into three categories. The managerial role categories are interpersonal, informational, and decisional. Slide number 16. The interpersonal leader roles include leader, figurehead, and liaison. Interpersonal roles, leader, figurehead, liaison. Informational roles, monitor, disseminator, act as a spokesman, disseminating information throughout the organization, monitoring the exchange of information, and decisional roles. You could be an entrepreneur, you could be a disturbance handler, fireman. Now listen, having over 25 years of management experience, you don't want to be the type of manager that is always putting out fires. You want to have employees that are mature, obedient, and that will treat each other well. So that's important on the front end when you hire employees. And resource allocator, and of course, negotiator. The leader role uses management functions to effectively accomplish organizational objectives. The figurehead role is used in legal, social, ceremonial, and symbolic activities. Leaders perform the liaison role when interacting with people outside their business unit. We now move on to slide number 17. Managerial roles, the informational leadership role, include monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. Leaders perform the monitor role when gathering information and, of course, monitoring how that information is gathered properly. The disseminator role, which is where it flows into, is used when sending information within the unit, also knowledge management. But as a disseminator, you also have to monitor how that information is being disseminated throughout the organization and to make sure that that information is imparted through clear messages, not garbled. That's why when you have a very tall structure, and when an organization has many layers between each other, there's a higher likelihood, a greater chance that that information will be garbled or distorted in some fashion. Leaders perform the spokesperson role when providing information to people outside their organizational unit. For example, if there's an issue with your product, a product recall, a natural disaster that hits your organization, you have to be able to speak to the general public and explain to them what will transpire in the near future so that people know what to expect. Slide 18. The decisional leadership role includes entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator. The entrepreneur role innovates new and improved products. The disturbance handler role takes action during crisis. The resource allocator role schedules, authorizes, and budgets activities. The negotiator role is used in transactions with no set boundaries. We now move on to slide number 19. Levels of analysis of leadership theory. The three levels of analysis of leadership theory are individual, group, and organizational. Individual level of analysis, also called the dyadic process, focuses on leaders' relationships with individual followers. Group levels of analysis, also called group process, focuses on how a leader contributes to group effectiveness. Organizational level of analysis, the organizational process focuses on the organization, and of course the structure within that organization. We now move on to slide 20. Slide 20 is a graph which talks about interrelationships amongst the levels of analysis of leadership theory. The group side of this graph, of this pyramid, supports the organizational side. Productive groups means productive individuals and organizations. Working for a winning organization tends to motivate individuals to perform at their best to stay on top. Just think of this. If you're on a World Series bound team or a playoff bound basketball team, you will want to perform because you want to make sure that you solidify that future. You make sure that you're going to end up on top and winning the championship. So if you're in a winning organization, you feel good, you feel motivated, you feel like you want to really put yourself to work and work at your highest levels. Finally, on the individual level, on the bottom, is at the bottom because group and organizational performance are based on individual performance, which of course is driven by your motivation. Slide 21, leadership theory paradigms. Leadership theory is an explanation of some aspect of leadership. Theories have practical value because they are used to better understand, predict, and control successful leadership. Leadership theory classifications include trait, behavioral, contingency, and integrative. Leadership paradigm is a shared mindset that represents a fundamental way of thinking about perceiving, studying, researching, and understanding leadership. We now move on to slide 22. We have two circles, trait and behavioral. Leadership trait theories attempt to explain distinctive characteristics accounting for leadership effectiveness. Behavioral leadership theories attempt to explain distinctive style used by effective leaders or to define the nature of their work. Now we move on to slide 23. We have trait, contingency, and behavioral. Contingency leadership theories attempt to explain the appropriate leadership style based on the leader, followers, and situation. Slide 24. Integrative leadership theories attempt to combine the trait, behavioral, and contingency theories to explain successful, influencing leader-follower relationships. Slide 25. From the management to the leadership theory paradigm. The old command and control model of management no longer works. Command and control is out. Today, managers must be able to lead as well as manage. Moving from the management to leadership theory paradigm is a shift from the older autocratic management style, Theory X, to the newer participative leadership style of the management and creating a Theory Y organization. Moving on to slide 26. The three-pronged approach, features of the book. This book, where I got this slide from, has a three-pronged approach. It talks about theory, application, and skill development. The objective of this is to teach you theory and concepts of leadership, which we'll go into more deeply in the upcoming videos, to develop your ability to apply leadership theory through critical thinking, and to develop your leadership skills in your personal and professional lives. Slide 27, discussion question for yourself and your fellow classmates. Should leadership courses focus on teaching students about leadership or on teaching students to be leaders? Interesting question. Point number 2, can college students really develop their leadership skills through a college course? Why or why not? The answer to that is, it really depends on what your expectations are. You also have to be given challenging assignments, such as case studies, to kind of simulate what will happen in the real world. Slide 28, leadership theory. The theories and concepts you will learn are based on research, evidence-based management, otherwise known as EMB, means that decisions and organizational practices are based on the best available scientific evidence. The Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Businesses, otherwise known as AACSB, gives accreditation to business schools. 29. Application of leadership theory. Students need to learn to think critically, and that's why I'm going to be giving you case studies so that you can think critically. Common criticism of management education is the focus on theory, but not on application of theory to practice. Another thing that's very, very important is to share experiences. Many times through lectures, I will sometimes interject my own personal experiences of management when it is appropriate. Therefore, students lack the ability to apply knowledge, because if it's just a matter of theory, just think of this for a minute. If you learn music theory, you learn the theory of the piano, but never actually put your fingers on the keyboard of the piano, are you really a pianist? Are you able to really play the piano, or do you just know it abstract? Students need to be given the opportunity to practice applying what they learn. That's why I highly suggest getting internships in the summer. Slide 30, leadership skill development. This book offers features to help develop your leadership skills. Models versus exhibits. Purpose of both: help improve your performance. Behavioral modeling, leadership skill training. Read the models, watch the videos, check a post, and practice the skills. And practice. You must continually practice your leadership skills. Another discussion question, food for thought. Is leadership ability universal, or is a good leader in one environment also effective in another? For example, can a leader in one industry, a hospital, be successful in another industry, a bank? Slide 32 speaks about how the book is set up, and you can read that on your own. And finally, slide 33 goes over key terms, which we have just discussed in our presentation. Thank you and have a good evening. I hope you enjoyed this lecture.